Greetings, Chillify channel owner. I am ready. Sarah, my sister-in-law, believed that frugality was a blessing, a way to accumulate good fortune for the baby in her womb. 3 months into her pregnancy, she was peeling moldy tomatoes, preparing to make scrambled eggs with tomatoes. I immediately tossed the tomatoes into the trash, telling her that moldy food contained dangerous fungi and could cause food poisoning. From then on, I took over all the grocery shopping for the family, ensuring everyone ate healthily. Later, my nephew, Leo, was born without complications, and the whole family thrived. But as Leo grew up, whenever he faced difficulties in life, Sarah would tell him that I had ruined his good fortune. One day, after he failed a competition for young children, he secretly put poison in my drink, choking me to death on the spot. When I opened my eyes again, Sarah was peeling moldy tomatoes. "You don't understand," she muttered to herself. "I'm not being stingy, I'm saving to accumulate blessings for the baby in my belly. These tomatoes might look bad on the outside, but the inside is still fresh. Peel them, cook them, and they're as good as new. Today, I'm adding more blessings for my child. Blessings plus one, plus one." Sarah, with her belly slightly protruding, was loudly video calling her friends from the kitchen, excitedly boasting about how she was accumulating blessings for her unborn child that day, all while peeling moldy tomatoes. Seeing this familiar scene, I suddenly realized I had been reborn. I immediately became alert, rushing to my room to pack my belongings. As I was about to leave, my mother, Mrs. Lee, blocked my path. She glanced towards Sarah, then lowered her voice and asked, "Alice, you're a doctor. Can moldy tomatoes be eaten if you just peel them? Will they cause food poisoning?" I scoffed internally, so Mother also suspected the tomatoes weren't safe. But she didn't want to speak up herself and offend Sarah, instead wanting me to take the fall. In my previous life, when Sarah and Mark, my brother, scolded me, Mother clearly felt relieved that I had stopped Sarah, but still sided with them, scolding me too. Such hypocrisy and malice were beyond belief. Thinking of this, I pretended not to hear clearly, acting in a hurry to push Mother away. "What did you say, Mother? I have an urgent matter at the hospital. Anything, please tell Sarah, okay? I have to go to work now." Mother tried to pull me back, but I slammed the door and left. Years ago, when Mark and Sarah were introduced through a matchmaker, Mother immediately approved of Sarah because of her frugality. She said Sarah would know how to manage the household and help Mark save money. Well, Mother chose the wife, so she can grit her teeth and live with her. This time, I wouldn't let it continue. This time, packing my things and leaving, I had no intention of ever returning. On my way to the hospital, I kept recalling the foolish things I had done in my previous life. Back then, I was a doctor. When I saw Sarah about to cook moldy tomatoes, I rushed into the kitchen and threw all the tomatoes into the trash. Sarah angrily shrieked, "Alice, are you crazy? Why did you throw away my tomatoes? You've ruined my son's good fortune. Can you take responsibility for that?" I patiently explained that moldy food contained many fungi, could easily cause food poisoning, and in the long run, even cancer. But she wouldn't listen. She sat on the floor, crying hysterically, pulling out her phone to call Mark and complain. "Honey, she won't let me eat, and she even cursed me with cancer. She's gone too far." Mark called and gave me a severe scolding. Mother also came to criticize me for bullying Sarah, warning me that if anything happened to Sarah's child, they talked about how beautiful I was, but it didn't matter. I forced myself to be patient and told them that eating moldy food could not only cause poisoning, but also lead to a miscarriage. Hearing that it could affect her unborn grandson, Sarah finally stopped crying. For the sake of the family's health, and for the grandson in Sarah's womb to be born safely, I promised Sarah that from then on, I would cover all the food expenses for the household, insisting that she must only eat fresh food. Sarah said nothing, implying her tacit agreement. I threw away all the moldy and expired food in the house, buying new replacements. From that day on, I woke up early every day, went to the market, and bought fresh vegetables, fruits, and meat for the whole family. All the moldy and blackened kitchen utensils were discarded and replaced with new ones. Sarah, wanting to save money, refused to go for prenatal checkups. As a doctor, I explained the importance of regular checkups and even paid out of my own pocket to take her. Sarah's underwear had turned black, but she still refused to change it. I advised her to throw it away and bought her entirely new ones. After Leo was born smoothly, Sarah wanted to use her sister's old clothes for him. Seeing the clothes covered in black mold stains, I threw them all away and bought Leo entirely new clothes and supplies. Sarah was reluctant to buy formula and diapers for Leo, often reusing one diaper for several days. For Leo's health and hygiene, I advised her to spend money wisely. And again, I voluntarily covered all of Leo's expenses. At that time, I was swamped at the hospital, while also having to keep an eye on Sarah, lest her frugality lead to something dangerous. I was so exhausted that I would collapse into sleep every evening. But seeing Leo grow up healthy and strong, and everyone in the family healthy, I felt all my sacrifices were worthwhile. However, I never expected that Leo would be brainwashed by Sarah, believing I had ruined his good fortune, and he would choke me to death. Mark, Sarah, and Mother, to absolve Leo, cruelly threw me from the upper floor, fabricating a scene of suicide. The family I had wholeheartedly cared for discarded me like trash. Regarding my death, they felt no remorse or grief. Instead, they comforted Leo, telling him not to be afraid, that I brought it upon myself, always meddling in others' affairs, and deserved to die. Thinking of this, my hatred swelled to its peak. I swore that in this life, if I ever concerned myself with their family again, may heaven and earth destroy me. This time, I would certainly respect their fate and never interfere again. That very evening, Sarah suffered from food poisoning and had to be rushed to the emergency room. I was carrying takeout when I ran into them at the hospital entrance. Mother insisted on pulling me in to see what was happening. I was dragged to the emergency room. Sarah lay on the emergency bed, vomiting and suffering from diarrhea, clearly poisoned from eating moldy tomatoes. Her face was as pale as paper, and her whole body reeked. I pinched my nose and stood to one side, secretly smiling. Sarah was finally getting her just desserts. When Sarah was being taken to the emergency room, Mark's eyes blazed with fury. He pointed at Mother and yelled, "You old hag, how did you take care of Sarah to let her end up like this? If anything happens to Sarah or my child, I'll beat you to death." Mother recoiled several steps in fear, bowing her head, tears streaming down her face. Seeing me standing nearby, she suddenly pointed at me and said, "It's not my fault. Sarah insisted on eating the moldy tomatoes." Alice is a doctor. I told her to stop Sarah, but she didn't say anything and just left. I'm just an old woman, what could I do? Hearing her shift the blame like that, I clenched my fists in indignation. She was playing the pity card, who didn't know that trick? I widened my eyes, feigning injustice, bowed my head and wiped away tears, whimpering, "Mother, how can you falsely accuse me like that? I was clearly at work today, you didn't ask me anything. You knew perfectly well that eating moldy tomatoes isn't good, yet you didn't stop Sarah. What were you thinking? She's pregnant. If something happens, can you take responsibility? And what's more, I give you 6,000 yuan for living expenses every month. You couldn't bear to throw away a few moldy tomatoes, couldn't buy fresh food for Sarah and Leo. Are you really that unwilling to spend money on them?" I watched Mother's face turn ashen. I transferred my salary directly to Mother every month. Mark had no idea. Now, hearing me say this, he was so enraged that he raised his hand and slapped Mother. "You rotten old hag. You always talk about for my son, for my grandson, but you're secretly hiding money for yourself. You watched my wife eat spoiled food, but you didn't touch a single bite yourself. Do you want to see my wife and child die? I never thought you could be so vicious. If anything happens to Sarah and the baby, you'll be the first one I beat to death." Mother fell to the ground, tears and snot streaming down her face, both wronged and muttering. I couldn't help it. Sarah insisted on being frugal, saying it was to accumulate blessings for the baby. I couldn't stop her. I stood watching, thinking the more chaotic the better. I shook my head, pretending to disagree. "Mother, what you're saying isn't right. Sarah is being frugal, isn't it, to lessen Mark's burden? It's to accumulate blessings for Leo. How can you blame her? On the contrary, you have money but won't spend it to help the family. You watch Mark struggle to carry everything, while you just sit at home doing nothing. That's not showing any affection, Mother." Mother's face turned pale with rage. She gritted her teeth, glared at me, her chest heaving with anger. Mark grew even angrier, about to rush forward and hit her again when the doctor came out. The doctor said the patient had food poisoning. Her stomach had been flushed, so her life was no longer in danger. However, since she was pregnant, she needed to be hospitalized for further observation. During this time, she would need nutritional supplements to prevent any deficiencies in the fetus. Mark breathed a sigh of relief, then handed me the hospital bill. "You know this place, go pay the bill. I'll go see how Sarah is doing." Sarah looked at me with an entitled expression, as if I was obligated to pay this amount. Thinking back to my previous life, how much I had sacrificed for this family, only to meet a tragic death, I burst out laughing from anger. I took a step back, not reaching for the bill. Mark, this whole thing was Mother's fault. I'm not paying. For years, I've given Mother money countless times. She has savings. This time, she made a mistake, so she should take responsibility herself. Mark was displeased, glaring at me, but ultimately handed the bill to Mother, saying softly, "She's right. It's good Sarah is okay. I'll let you off this time, but go pay the bill quickly." Mother, embarrassed and furious, glared at me with resentment, then reluctantly took the bill downstairs. I was about to leave when Mark turned and instructed me. "Alice, go home and cook a pot of soup for Sarah and bring it here. The doctor said she needs nutrition now. Buy an old hen, add lots of supplements, and simmer it thoroughly." With that, he turned and headed towards Sarah's room. It was as if this was naturally my duty, and he was certain I would comply. But I was no longer the Alice of my previous life. I wouldn't waste my energy and end up with a tragic death for ungrateful relatives. They didn't appreciate me, so why should I sacrifice for them? If they want soup, they can cook it themselves. I, Alice, won't do it anymore. I turned and carried my takeout upstairs. It was 11 p.m. I was on duty in the ward when my phone vibrated incessantly. I pulled it out and saw it was Mark. After waiting for the chicken soup that never arrived, he was frantically tagging me in the family chat group. Sarah was also cursing. "Alice, are you dead? The soup's been cooking since morning and it's still not here. I'm starving to death. My baby will starve. I won't forgive you." Mother, harboring resentment, chimed in, "This wretched girl. Your sister-in-law waited for you all evening. Did you hide at home and eat it all yourself?" I rolled my eyes, thought for a moment, then decided to reply just to infuriate them. "Want chicken soup? Please go out the door, turn left, and head to the end of the hallway. You'll find everything there." The end of the hallway was the restroom. Indeed, it had everything. I smirked maliciously. "From today on, I'm moving out. You all have hands and feet. If you want to eat, take care of yourselves. Don't bother me anymore." Finally, I even sent a vampire-sucking blood sticker. Mother actually followed my instructions. She went out to the hallway to check, discovered it was the restroom, and furiously cursed me in the group chat. "Alice, do you dare to rebel? Do you want your sister-in-law to drink toilet water?" Mark and Sarah also went ballistic. All three took turns scolding me in the group. Messages immediately piled up to 99 plus. I didn't bother to reply to a single one, switching the group to "Do Not Disturb" mode. A few days later, they tagged me constantly in the group, sending a flurry of messages. It turned out they couldn't find me at the hospital and wanted to ask which department I was working in. I looked at those messages and sneered coldly. For years, they only sought me out when they needed something, when they needed someone to spend money, yet they never knew what I studied or which department I worked in. Now they couldn't find me, so they asked. How ridiculous. I wasn't stupid. I wouldn't give them another chance to bother me. I ignored all messages, no matter how angry they got. I just quietly watched and didn't reply to a single word. Meanwhile, colleagues kept glancing at me and whispering, making me feel uncomfortable all over. At lunch, a colleague I was quite close with finally helped clarify what was happening. He asked me hesitantly, "Alice, is your sister-in-law hospitalized in our hospital?" I froze. "Yes, why do you ask?" He took out his phone and showed me a video. In the video, Mother, tears and snot streaming down her face, was accusing me in front of a group of doctors and nurses. She claimed I had no conscience, that Sarah was hospitalized, but I hadn't visited her once, didn't reply to messages, and didn't come home. She said that when I was in school, I only knew how to beg her for money. Now that I was grown up, I even abandoned my own mother, cursing me as an ungrateful, rebellious child. The more I watched, the angrier I got, slamming my fist down on the table. In this life, I just wanted to stay away from them, yet they wouldn't let me go, all because of money. If that's the case, then I don't need to be polite either. Ever since Sarah was hospitalized, Mark had been sending me hospital bills every day, asking me to transfer money. Sarah's stomach flushing had affected the pregnancy, showing signs of a mild threatened miscarriage, and the daily cost of maintaining the pregnancy was extremely expensive. They were deliberately forcing me to show up, clearly wanting me to pay Sarah's hospital bills. Their scheme was too obvious. I immediately compiled all the money I had sent to the family over the years, including bank statements, records of my part-time jobs during college, along with screenshots of our conversations on WeChat. I gathered it all into a long post and sent it directly to the hospital's large group chat. Every word of the post was filled with indignation. It accused Mother of never supporting my university education. I had to study and work part-time to get where I was today. Normally, Mother only looked for me to ask for money. Sarah only remembered me when she needed to buy new things. Mark would always cry poor and helpless when it was time to pay rent, asking for my help. In my conversations with them, there wasn't a single word of care or concern, only demands for money. After Sarah was hospitalized, Mark sent me hospital bills every day without a single word of concern, every sentence filled with dissatisfaction. Coupled with the clear evidence, it sent a chill down the viewers' spines. The doctors and nurses in the group chat started getting angry on my behalf. Some sympathized, saying they would consider me family. Family like that I don't need, I thought. Others cursed my family as heartless, deceitful, and unworthy of being human. Some doctors and nurses even declared they would give special care to my family to help me. Soon after, I heard the news that Sarah had been transferred to a different ward. The new room had a squatter, someone who occupied the room but refused to be discharged, and who was both ill-tempered and stubborn. As soon as Sarah moved in, she argued with that person every day. Mother tried to defend Sarah but ended up getting a good beating from the squatter. Mark, enraged, fought back against the person, but the person clung to him, complaining of various pains every day and demanding compensation from Mark. After examination, including nutrition fees and emotional damages, the total came to 30,000 yuan. Sarah was so furious that she went into preterm labor again. All her previous efforts to maintain the pregnancy were in vain. Mark no longer had money to pay the hospital bills, so he had to take Sarah home and ask Mother to care for her. As for me, after posting my story, the doctors and nurses sympathized greatly. I usually worked hard and had good relationships, so they treated me like family and friends. They invited me to their homes for meals, gave me delicious food, and asked me to go for walks and hang out. Every day, I was enveloped in love and care. Eating well and sleeping peacefully, I visibly rounded out. From a skinny, dark girl, I became adorably plump. After Sarah was discharged from the hospital, she spent all day in bed recuperating from her pregnancy. Mother, who used to go out dancing in the square and playing cards every day, now had to stay home and take care of Sarah. Sarah still believed that frugality accumulated blessings for her child, meticulously counting every penny. But this time, having learned her lesson, she ate all the fresh, delicious food herself, while Mother ate the leftovers and stale rice. Because of this, Mother complained incessantly, often arguing with Sarah. Every time they argued, Sarah would complain of stomach pains and then tell Mark. Of course, Mark sided with the mother of his child. He would come home and beat Mother. After several beatings, Mother became submissive, not daring to argue with anything Sarah said. All of Mother's savings were also completely drained by Mark and Sarah. I no longer sent money. She had to reach out to Mark and Sarah, begging them for money. Sarah, in turn, criticized Mother for spending too much, which she claimed negatively affected her frugality and was detrimental to accumulating blessings for Leo, forcing Mother to share meals with leftovers and eat cold rice 3 times a day. Mrs. Zio, the next-door neighbor, told me all these things, and I only replied with one sentence: serves them right. A month later, for Sarah's birthday, she posted a series of photos on her social media. I opened each photo one by one. The living conditions in their home shocked me. After the recent humid rainy season, the living room walls were covered in black mold. In the kitchen, scattered chopsticks, the wooden knife block, and the kitchen cabinets were all moldy and furry. Yet they continued to use them, the entire house filled with a pervasive, unpleasant damp smell. On the living room table, a pile of moldy, rotting fruit was stacked, seemingly with no intention of being thrown away. Mother stood nearby, her eyes dull and vacant. I immediately realized that Mother must have been in that moldy environment for too long, inhaling fungal spores through her respiratory tract, leading to her mind becoming foggy and confused. Mother's room had the worst ventilation, so her symptoms appeared faster. Coupled with eating cold rice for so long, Mother's health began to rapidly decline. In my previous life, when I was alive, all the kitchen utensils were replaced regularly. After the rainy season, there was always someone to clean and dehumidify. The entire house was always spotless, and the whole family was healthy. In this life, I just wanted to coldly watch them rot away, absolutely not opening my mouth, so they would have no reason to blame me. One night, as I was drifting off to sleep, I received a call from Mother. She sounded in great pain, her voice weak, begging, "Alice, my stomach hurts so much. Mark and Sarah said we have to save money and won't let me go to the hospital. Please, can you come and take me to see a doctor?" I sensed something was wrong and immediately asked, "What did you eat to make you like this?" Mother's voice became weaker and weaker, as soft as a mosquito's buzz. I quickly turned up the volume, only vaguely hearing Mother say, "I'm so hungry. Sarah only gives me stale, moldy rice to eat. After eating it, my stomach hurts constantly. Alice, save me. I feel like I'm not going to make it." My heart suddenly tightened. Even though Mother had favored Mark, treating me like an ATM since I was a child in that moment, a flicker of reluctance arose within me. However, memories of my death in my previous life suddenly surged back. I was poisoned to death. My nephew, Leo, was frightened. Mother, at that time, appeared remarkably calm. To protect Leo from being charged with murder, she quickly suggested pushing my body off the building, pretending I died in an accident. Even when Mark and Sarah were too scared to act, Mother herself pushed my body down without a trace of hesitation or sorrow. Thinking of this, my heart, which had just softened, instantly turned cold again. I said coldly, "Mother, you never treated me like your daughter since I was little. Why do you need to beg me now? Go find Mark. After all, he's the precious treasure you pampered since he was a child. Pray for your own blessings." With that, I hung up. The next morning, Mark messaged me that Mother had passed away. He and Sarah told outsiders that Mother died suddenly of a heart attack. To avoid being labeled unfilial, they held a grand funeral, inviting many relatives. I looked at Mother's body lying in the coffin, my feelings complex. From childhood, I had done all the housework and had to give in to Mark in everything. He was short-tempered and foolish. Mother had spent countless amounts of money helping him clean up his messes. Yet when I wanted to study, Mother made me pay for my own tuition. That son, whom Mother cherished in the palm of her hand, not only failed to repay her love but sided with his wife, tormenting Mother to death. I had only moved out less than 3 months prior, and Mother had already become gaunt and emaciated. Now, lying in the coffin, she was shriveled and gray, like a tiny, dry corpse. At the funeral, Mark and Sarah secretly used onions to rub their eyes, weeping dramatically. Relatives praised them as filial children, while I remained expressionless the entire time, not shedding a single tear, standing silently to the side. Soon, the relatives began to gossip. How can a daughter compare to a son? As they grow up, their hearts change. But I didn't care. Having died once, I had come to understand a principle. My heart should only be given to those who deserve it. Those irrelevant people who had never been kind to me weren't worth my concern. So, whatever they said, I ignored it. After the funeral, according to local custom, a banquet had to be held for the relatives. But a party outside was expensive, so Mark and Sarah brought all the relatives home, intending to cook themselves to save costs. The already small house was immediately cramped with relatives. Mark ordered me to cook, but I feigned an injury and flatly refused. With all the relatives present, he didn't dare to do anything to me. None of the aunts, relying on their status as guests, wanted to go into the kitchen. The cooking duties ultimately fell on Sarah. She looked at the relatives sitting outside, chatting idly, and her eyes turned red with anger. I saw with my own eyes her taking out a bag of moldy rice from under the cabinet and mixing it with new rice to trick everyone. The kitchen towels and cutting board were so severely moldy that they were completely black. Yet, Sarah still picked up the cutting board to chop vegetables, not even rinsing it with water. I immediately felt nauseous. I swore internally that I would rather die than touch a single grain of rice from here. Mark brought out milk to offer everyone. I picked it up to check, and to my horror, the expiration date was nearly half a year past. The milk inside was definitely spoiled. Yet, the relatives, without any caution, didn't even bother to check before inserting straws and drinking it. I quietly put the milk down and sat to one side. Sarah quickly cooked only 4 dishes and then started serving them. The relatives all frowned, displeased, but thought it was better than nothing, so they reluctantly sat down to eat. I glanced at the 4 dishes on the table and frowned again. The stir-fried beans with meat had pieces of meat blacker than beef. One look, and you knew it was some kind of ancient frozen dried meat. The scrambled eggs with tomatoes had an unusual color. When someone voiced suspicion, Sarah immediately explained, This is beef, actually. We're all family here, how could I use pork? I had to buy fresh beef, it's only right. And for the eggs, I added soy sauce to fry them for a richer flavor. This is my secret recipe, I usually don't tell anyone. My eldest uncle picked up a piece of egg and put it in his mouth, nodding repeatedly. It really tastes like my wife's cooking. Follow her recipe from now on. Sarah smiled contentedly. I stood behind her, hearing her smugly tell Mark, "Wonderful." We saved so much money on this meal, and it also helped accumulate blessings for our darling child. Mark gave a thumbs up and praised, "My wife is so capable." I gave a cold laugh, waiting for the show to begin. To avoid suspicion, I pretended to be busy carrying rice and dishes, but adamantly refused to eat a single bite. The meal wasn't even over when someone started having stomach pains, rushing to the toilet to vomit. After that, more and more people crowded the toilet. It was all vomiting, with a strong, foul odor. Unable to get into the toilet, people started vomiting in the living room. Some were vomiting and had diarrhea, unable to make it to the bathroom, and had to relieve themselves right there in the living room. Mark and Sarah, the main culprits, couldn't escape either, clutching their stomachs and retching on the floor. I let out a cold laugh. I couldn't believe Sarah hadn't learned her lesson from last time. In my previous life, if I hadn't intervened, she would have died from food poisoning countless times. This time, it was only because of the scare last time that she had been quiet for a while. Mark probably didn't know the milk was expired or that Sarah's cooking was unsanitary, so he ate like everyone else. Suddenly, everyone remembered I was a doctor. They crawled towards me, begging for help. "Save me, I'm going to die." I pinched my nose, kept my distance from them, and called an ambulance. Ambulances arrived. Seeing the serious situation, they dispatched several more, taking everyone to the hospital. The test results came quickly. Everyone had food poisoning. Large amounts of mold and aflatoxin toxins were found in the vomit samples. Everyone needed emergency stomach flushing. One by one, they were taken for stomach flushing. Afterwards, they came out screaming, demanding compensation from Mark for medical expenses and emotional damages. Mark, still weak after his stomach flushing, was surrounded by people demanding money and arguing chaotically. He shouted loudly, "You all ate it yourselves. I didn't force you. My mother just passed away. Do you people have any conscience? I don't have any money. If you want to blame someone, blame yourselves for being greedy." "I won't pay a single cent." Hearing those irresponsible words, the relatives grew even angrier. Even though they were weak, they lunged forward, trying to hit Mark. The ward immediately descended into chaos. No one noticed that Sarah was still not out of the operating room. During the previous food poisoning incident, the fetus in Sarah's womb had shown signs of a threatened miscarriage. It was already dangerous, and now, after only a few months, she was poisoned again. I secretly guessed that Sarah would likely lose the baby this time. Sure enough, the doctor quickly came to deliver the grim news. The baby in Sarah's womb was gone. Mark was stunned for nearly half a minute, then fell to his knees, wailing. When Sarah learned she had lost the baby, she couldn't accept it, going insane and blaming all the doctors. She screamed hysterically in the ward. "You useless doctors! My baby was healthy, how could it be gone? I accumulated so many blessings for it. It was a blessed child. It must be because your medical skills are too poor. You killed my baby, I'll kill you all." Sarah grabbed a fruit knife and lunged to attack a doctor. The doctor's arm was slashed, bleeding profusely. Security guards immediately rushed in to restrain her. Well, that's good. Sarah was charged with assaulting medical personnel, taken to the police station, detained administratively for 10 days, and fined 500 yuan. After a series of shocks, Mark looked as if he had aged 10 years overnight, but the relatives still wouldn't let him go, threatening to sue him if he didn't compensate them. Reluctantly, he had to agree to compensation. The total miscellaneous costs amounted to 500,000 yuan. His family was already not well off, and his salary was meager. Pushed to the brink, he thought of me, his sister. He searched all over the hospital but couldn't find me, so he called. "Alice, where did you die? You don't answer calls and you're nowhere to be found." I smiled and replied, "I just landed. My phone had to be off during the flight so I couldn't receive calls. What do you need me for?" Mark immediately roared. "At a time like this, you're still talking about flying? Do you know I have to pay 500,000? Transfer the money to me immediately." I gave a cold laugh. "What nonsense are you talking about? I'm here for work." I was accepted for a 1-year exchange program at the capital's central hospital. "I won't be back for the next year. Where would I get money to give you?" I just rented a place. Everything in the capital is expensive. I don't even have enough for myself, let alone to help others. Ever since I was reborn and moved out of that house, I had started applying for studies at the capital's hospital. Firstly, to escape the toxic people in my family. Secondly, to improve my professional skills for a more solid future career. Thanks to my outstanding academic performance, the hospital approved my application. After Mother's funeral, I had planned my departure. I had anticipated Mark would call to demand money. Sure enough, as soon as I landed, he called. Mark was furious, grinding his teeth. If you don't have money, borrow it, use a credit card, get an online loan, whatever. Transfer the money to me within a day. If it weren't for you, would we be in this mess? You're a doctor, but you didn't warn Mother and Sarah, which led to Mother's death. Sarah had a miscarriage. It's all your fault, you have to take responsibility. I snorted with laughter from anger. It was impossible to make two different kinds of people out of one blanket. Mark and Sarah were truly two peas in a pod, champions of blame shifting. In my previous life, I wholeheartedly helped them, and they still blamed me for ruining Leo's fortune. In this life, I did nothing, stayed away from them, and they still managed to blame everything on me. A family full of rotten people, just thinking about it made me nauseous. I said coldly, emphasizing each word, "Listen carefully, Mark. Whether I have money or not, I will not give it to you. You can give up that idea." I gave a faint smile. "Don't you still have a house? Just sell it." With that, I hung up and blocked all of Mark's and Sarah's phone numbers. My next-door neighbor told me that after Sarah was released from detention, she and Mark argued every day. Relatives came to their house daily, demanding money. When Mark refused to pay, they threw blood in front of their door, blocking the entrance and preventing anyone from leaving the house. No one on that floor had any peace. Finally, under immense pressure, Mark had to sell the house to compensate the relatives. Then, he and Sarah moved to a dilapidated apartment complex in the suburbs. The two were determined to start over and have another child. Having learned a costly lesson, Sarah completely changed her previous mindset, now believing that saving to accumulate blessings was nonsense. If you had money, you should spend it. Living life to the fullest was the true philosophy. She completely changed her lifestyle. Everything had to be the newest, freshest, and most expensive. Mark, wanting Sarah to recover her health and get pregnant soon, indulged her every whim. Sarah demanded to eat fresh lobsters and salmon flown in from abroad. Mark bought them without batting an eye. Hearing there was a bed costing 100,000 yuan that supposedly made it easier to get pregnant, he immediately bought it. Sarah wanted fresh cherries. He bought a whole large crate. When she found the clothes in the house old, he immediately opened a joint spending account and took her shopping every day, filling the entire house with new things. But 6 months passed, and Sarah's belly still showed no activity. On the contrary, she gained a lot of weight, becoming plump, fair-skinned, and with much better complexion. While Mark was at work, Sarah began secretly seeing other men. Once, Mark's colleague even caught them, taking photos and sending them to Mark. Mark was enraged. He went home, beat her, and locked her in the house, demanding she get pregnant before she was allowed to step out. Another 6 months passed. Her belly still showed no signs of pregnancy, but the money in the house was being spent like water, with little left from the house sale. Mark was furious. After much thought, he concluded that Sarah's uterus must have been damaged by the previous miscarriage, and she couldn't get pregnant anymore. So, he cut off all her luxury spending, forcing her to return to her previous days of extreme frugality while he went out to party and cheat with young girls. But going from luxury to hardship was incredibly difficult. Sarah couldn't stand the days of eating leftovers and stale food. She secretly ran out of the house. Coincidentally, she caught Mark kissing a young girl. Sarah went mad, rushed into a 2-yuan store, bought a fruit knife, and charged at Mark, stabbing him directly in the arm. Mark was in great pain. He struggled, fought back, and snatched the knife. One stab after another, he continuously stabbed Sarah in the abdomen over a dozen times. She was stabbed to death on the spot. At that moment, I was about to secretly check on the two of them, but unexpectedly witnessed the entire incident with my own eyes. Terrified, my face drained of all color. Afterwards, the investigation report revealed that Sarah was 1 month pregnant at the time, but there had been no obvious symptoms. Neither of them had known she was pregnant. Mark was charged with intentional murder and sent to prison. I took the opportunity to visit him and told him that Sarah had been pregnant. He buried his head in his hands, crying a river of tears, but there was no turning back. Let him live his days in prison, tormented by regret for the rest of his life.